She has been in the media. She runs a national organization. She's into well-being. A few years ago, there was a conference that she done, which we were invited to, and for some reason we couldn't do it. And then now we're in this COVID season, and there's a lot that she's going to tell you about herself and what she does. I don't want to ruin it by giving her a bad introduction. I think she can speak much better about herself than I can. But what we will say is you are welcome today, Suzy. And normally I give people 20 minutes, but I think it's right if we give you at least 30 today. So if you don't need 30, we can easily turn it into a Q&A. We won't bite. Everyone in this session is really keen to hear, and we respond. And if there's anything that you want to pose as questions, feel free. So over to you, Suzy.
Thank you, Mike. And hello to everybody. This is a very new concept for me. I'm used to doing Facebook Lives, but doing Zoom presentations is a whole new thing. So I'm seeing all these faces popping up, which is lovely to see you all. So hello to you all. I'm joining you from Inverness in the Highlands of Scotland, which I just love living here. So I'd love if you could tell me where you guys are all joining from, just in the chat box, so I can kind of get a handle on the geography of where everybody's coming from. But yeah, I'm really grateful. Thank you, Mike. I love the things that you were saying there about this being a time of change, being gratitude, and all the, really looking at our lives. And that's essentially what I've been doing for the last 12, 13 years. And I am now the founder of Change Your World, which is an organization to inspire people to make positive changes in their life, whatever that means for them. But it's all about creating a ripple effect for individuals, organizations, and the environment. And that's all done through the power of personal development. And the reason I'm so passionate about personal development is because I've turned my own life around. And I mean, the mere fact that I'm talking to you today, delivering a presentation when I had a morbid fear of public speaking 5-6 years ago, and just terrified. Something like this would have absolutely terrified me, and I would have had kittens at the idea of somebody suggesting that I do something like this. So I'm super passionate about personal development, and I'm delighted to be able to share my story in Mental Health Week, Awareness Week, because there was a time in my life where I was not living life to the full. I wasn't thriving. I was just surviving. And the fact that I'm now leading this organization, Change Your World, and encouraging and inspiring and supporting others to change their worlds is quite a transformation. And so my story starts, I suppose, I'll take it back 12 years ago. So at the time I was working in the BBC. I was a radio producer. So that part of my life felt very successful. I had a great job, which I really loved. And I had worked hard to get there. So if you know my background, I left school at 16 with no qualifications. I went to do window dressing because I just generally couldn't think of anything else to do. And I thought, oh, that sounds like it'll be fun. And at 16, went to college, did this year's course, then went into retail, started working my way up as a supervisor. And then at the grand age of 22, I became assistant manager. But at the time we had no manager, so I was just holding the fort. Now, I was doing quite well. I was quite driven that, but I just thought, I suddenly had this notion of my life at 40, which seemed really old at that time when I was 22. Now being 45, I'm just like, oh my God, that just seems so young now. However, at the age of 22, I just thought, oh my God, I don't want to do this. I was getting abuse from shoplifters every day. I was getting abuse from customers. I was, trying to inspire disillusioned Saturday staff who just didn't want to be there. And I thought, if I do this for the rest of my life, I'm going to be utterly miserable. But I had no clue what I wanted to do or how to change it or anything. But I kept asking the question, what do I want? What would I really like to do? And I can't even explain it. All I can say was it was a divine download or some kind of intuition, but out of nowhere it came to me, TV or radio researcher. I had no idea what that even meant. However, I then went to the local college on my day off. And I mean, this was a time when I didn't really use the internet. So that wasn't, you know, I physically went in face to face to say, do you have any media courses? I was then told, just go up to the department head, Lynn Strait, to speak to her. And I don't even remember what the conversation was, but that led to her just saying to me, I'll tell you what, if you're serious about this, I'll give you a conditional offer right here and right now, but the course starts next week and you have to commit to it. And I was like, I'll be there. So I went home, told my parents, told my loved ones, my partner, I'm jacking in my what was considered a decent job at that time and my finances. I said, I'm going back to college to study media research. And everybody was like, what? You're mad. However, a week later, I remember pushing the doors open of the college and just thinking, wow, this is it. I just knew I'd made the right decision. So that led to 2 years in college. I then applied for work experience at the BBC. And I had to go through all these kind of different rigmaroles. But anyway, I got an interview just for work experience. And I was told in that interview that I would not get a job in the BBC because I did not have a university degree, which triggered all my inner emotions because I didn't feel, one of my things is I always didn't feel that I was clever enough. I didn't feel I was smart enough. And who was I to get a job in the BBC? However, my response was, well, I think that's a great shame because you're missing out on a great wealth of talent out there. And there's a load of amazing people. Just because they don't have the academic skills doesn't mean that they don't have talent. So I don't know whether that was what swung it, but however, I got my work experience and that led onto an 18-year career in the BBC. So it was nice little 2 fingers to that guy. He was a little bit arrogant, I have to say, and now no longer works at the BBC. So however, but what was going well, so I was really thriving in my job at the BBC because I was being exposed to what I call now role models, people that gave me a different perspective. Because my job was phoning up people, I had to come up with all different story ideas, program ideas, and I was able to phone people up and say, hi, I'm Suzy from the BBC. We're doing a topic on this. Can you tell me about it? Would you be able to contribute it? So I'd find out all about people's lives, their cultures, their backgrounds, the scenarios that they've been. And it always fascinated me what people came through, what the adversity they survived and how they survived it. And it always inspired me. But I didn't realize the power and what that was teaching me going forward, being surrounded by different role models and different perspectives. So whilst that was going well, the rest of my life was not. So I was slightly overweight. I had some chronic health issues that were causing me problems. I was in a lot of debt. I was in an extremely toxic relationship. And I had some toxic friendships as well. And to be honest, I was in my mid-30s, and even though it looked like I had a good job, the nice house, the boyfriend, I wasn't happy. I had done everything society had expected of me, you know, to get a good job, all these trappings, as I call them now. And, you know, I still didn't feel happy or fulfilled. I just felt utterly miserable. And I kind of looked at all my friends and I just thought, they look so happy and content. Why am I not feeling that way? However, a chance meeting, somebody I was interviewing for a program, a story, tragically lost his son, but off air, he was a life coach. He used to be a policeman and he'd retrained as a life coach. And I was like, what's a life coach, you know? And he says, well, basically I help people to reach their true potential. And then he said, you could do with some life coaching. And I was like, how very dare you, you know? I just thought, what are you talking about? But he was so right. And Alistair is very intuitive. And despite me putting up my best front forward and, you know, claiming, you know, looking like everything was rosy, he knew otherwise. And it took me 4 months to pluck up the courage to actually pick up the phone to him and say, I think I need some life coaching. And again, that was a after another argument with my partner, and we had been arguing about the same thing for 12 months. And I vowed I would not be in that situation 12 months on, arguing about the same situation. And I just broke down in tears, just thinking, how can we still be arguing about this? And I realized that if I wanted to change the situation, I had to do something different, because I was just doing the same thing and expecting different results. So, and at the time I could ill afford life coaching. Like I said, I was in a lot of debt, and, you know, we were barely struggling to pay the mortgage, but I realized, actually, I'm not spending my money on anything that is going to help me out of this situation. I have to invest in this. I have to find a way. So I started the life coaching sessions with Alistair, and just the first session, he'd said to me, he said, well, what do you want? And by that time, you know, I'd made up with my partner. You know, this was 4 days later. I'd made up with my partner, and I was wondering, oh, what am I even going for this session for? You know, I talked myself out of it. But then I thought, just see it through, just because, and I was terrified. I was actually terrified to sit in front of this man and just, you know, start talking about myself. But he said, you know, what do you want? I said, I don't know. I said, I just want to be happy. And he says, well, what does happiness look like to you? And I was like, I don't know. I had no idea. Nobody had ever asked me that question. What does happiness look like to you? What do you want for your life? It was all just that expectation that society puts on you to get a job, you know, well, go to school first, obviously, then get a job, you maybe go to further education, and then it's like get married, have kids, whatever, you know. And I thought, well, none of that is bringing me happiness. I've done all that, and it's not bringing me happiness. And so he said, well, you know, how can you create the life that you want and the happiness that you want if you don't even know what that looks like? So, you know, we started working together, and I started realizing my limiting beliefs, what was holding me back, pressures that I was kind of putting on myself to be a certain way, people pleasing, that kind of thing, but putting Suzy at the bottom of the pile every time. Like, it just felt really odd to put myself first. You know, that had not been a concept. It was just running around after everybody else. So I started to make some sort of subtle changes, the way I acted, and change into starting different practices and reading self-help books and stuff like that, and becoming aware, super aware of my thoughts and my thinking and how I was showing up. But then, so I started to see some improvements, and I was really getting into personal development, but then a whole grenade went off in my life. And so I'd already lost my dad at the age of 24. My mum, 11 years on, my mum and sister are both diagnosed with terminal cancer within 4 months of each other. Now, this was bad enough that I was about to lose my mum and sister, but I also have another sister, Shelley, who has learning disabilities. And I always knew that I would look after Shelley when my parents passed away. But I always just assumed that, one, I'd be married with kids and Shelley would just slot into family life. I also assumed that my other siblings would be around. I've got another brother as well. And I assumed that, you know, they would just be on hand to help out and I wouldn't be doing this alone. But that wasn't my situation, because when my mum and sister were both diagnosed, that led on to the deterioration also of my relationship with James. And, you know, because I was doing the personal development, and this whole situation had made me really take stock of my life, really understanding. I mean, I learned at the age of 24 how short life was when I lost my dad. My dad was in his 70s when he's passed away, his early 70s. And he said, I'm too young to die. And I remember thinking at that time, that is not going to be my legacy. I thought my dad had lived a full life, but he was in his early 70s saying, you know, I've still got so much I want to do. I haven't done it yet. And now this opportunity was being taken away. And I thought, okay, if I can learn anything from this situation and this pain, then it is to not waste life. So here I am, the 11 years between my dad passing away and my mum and my sister passing away. I've become completely complacent again, and I've just let life take over. I've not been creating the life that I want to live. I've just been responding to whatever came up. And, you know, other people were taking control of my life. and situations were taking control of my life. So sadly, I did lose my mum and my sister Shelley did come to stay with me. And, you know, it was just a period in my life where it was just an enormous amount of stress, grief, loss, just complete and utter overwhelm. And, you know, my mental health just completely started deteriorating. Now, I wouldn't say that I had clinical depression, but I certainly had circumstantial depression where I just couldn't cope under the enormous amount of challenges I was being thrown. Because it wasn't just, obviously I became full-time carer and mother for my sister all of a sudden. You know, I split up with my partner. That meant moving house, dealing with my mum and sister, losing them. My relationship with my brother completely deteriorated, and you know, he said he wanted nothing to do with us, so that was another loss. And it was just one thing after another, and even my job, which I'd been thriving in, I absolutely loved, I just was no longer managing to cope under the circumstances, because, and you know, I was told to get signed off, which was the right thing to do, but that just felt the last semblance of my life, that the normality, anything that I had recognized as my life had just been thrown up in the air, and you know, things were just landing again. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to rebuild this jigsaw, this picture of my life that I thought was my life. So trust me, the story does get better. So the thing is, my mental health was spiraling down, and it did get to a point where it really got really dark. And I remember waking up. So I believe that when we die, we go to this beautiful place of unconditional love, and all pain is taken away, and you see what life, the human existence, was really all about. And I just thought, if I could, you know, every morning I was waking up and I would initially have this pain in my heart that would physically stop me breathing from the grief that I was experiencing. And I just thought, I was exhausted. I was just the relentless onslaught of the challenges that I was going through, fighting with social services to get a care package for my sister, just one thing after another. And I recognized that, you know, I was really spiraling downwards, and it was getting to the point where I was actually starting to think about checking out and taking my life. And I suddenly thought, whoa, when did I start thinking like that? Because that's not me. My nickname is Suzy Sunshine. You know, even when the chips are really down, I'm like, oh, come on, we'll find a way, sort of thing. But that was not me. And that's when I realized, okay, I got to turn this situation round. And now I'd been seeing Alistair. He'd been a constant in my life. I'd been having regular life coaching sessions with him. I'd been reading self-help books. I had been attending, you know, workshops and events where I could, watching things online, but I had not been applying any of the techniques that I had been learning. It was all just theory at this point. It was like, oh, that's a great idea, but I wasn't applying any of it. And one of the things that Alistair had said to me that week, so Alistair's got a very dry, sarcastic sense of humor, but he knows how to handle me, and he knows what to say to me to jar me into action. And he said, you know, that particular week, I hadn't actually sort of said to him what was going on or what I was feeling. But again, he was very intuitive, he knew. And he says, Suzy, just remember, no matter how bad it gets, it could always get worse. I was like, are you kidding me? I have literally lost my mum and my sister. My brother's no longer in my life. I've split up with my partner. I've lost my beautiful home. But then I realized, actually, I've still got amazing friends. I've still got a job that is allowing me the space and time to take some time out to heal. I've still got a roof over my head. I've still got my gorgeous sister, Shelley. And, you know, I mean, Shelley, talk about, I mean, she's got learning difficulties, but she's been one of the biggest teachers in kindness and love and generosity. She's just, talk about being present and just, yeah, not dealing with the stresses that we have to deal with She's just been a fantastic teacher. But I had her in my life. You know, like I said, I had great friends. I had Alistair, the life coach. And I thought, okay, I actually have a lot to be grateful for. There's a lot going on in my life, despite all these challenges and how upset I feel. There is still a lot of good things to focus on. And that's when I really needed to refocus, okay, what's going well in my life and what's not. And one of the things the BBC asked, as their duty of care, they told me to go for counselling, and you get 6 sessions free. And I sort of resisted it at first because I said, I don't want to go for counselling. You know, I've got Alistair, I'm seeing the life coach, that's really working for me, because he was giving me tools to actually empower myself, to change my situation, to turn things around, and giving me a different perspective on my thinking. But when the BBC insisted, and I went to these counselling sessions. So every Friday was this counselling session, and she would say, right, so what's been going on this week? So I'd spend an hour literally telling her all the things that had gone wrong in this week and all the challenges I'd been dealing with. And then she would just, casually look at her watch at 5 to the hour, as we were wrapping up. And she'd be like, right, that's it for next week. And I was like, how is this helping me? This has just actually compounded the issues. Like I've just spent an hour. I mean, okay, you might say, well, offloading is good, and that you might need to get it off your chest. But I did have good friends I was able to do that with. And I was like, no, I'm coming to you as a professional. I need tools and techniques to stop me spiraling down and staying in my pity party. And, if you are going through challenges, don't get me wrong, it's okay to have a pity party and feel sorry for your situation, grieve the situation, but it's about not staying stuck there. And that's what I find the counselling did for me. So I went for 3 sessions, and then I said, no, this is actually not helping me. However, I will say, find what's right for you, because you might find it is helpful for you. So I'm not saying counselling is not good. But for me, the life coaching was what I needed to do, because that did give me tools and techniques. So slowly, one by one, piece by piece, in each area of my life, I started unpicking, changing, and adapting my life. And I just started looking at my life and going, okay, what's working? What brings me joy? What makes me happy? What can I do? How can I change this situation? And I just started focusing on one area at a time. And I started looking at my values. So for me, health, given that I'd lost 3 members of my family to cancer, I thought, okay, I don't want to end up that same way. So I've got to look after my health. That's a big value. And then I started looking and going, okay, my diet is shocking. I'm doing no exercise. I'm stressed to the hilt. This is not contributing to a healthy lifestyle, and my value of health. So I needed to start looking at that. So I started changing my diet, started moving more, finding activities that I enjoyed, and, trying different things. So, slowly by surely, I started changing my life. I got my sister settled in her own home with a team of carers. So then that created some space in my life where actually I could just focus on me and start to heal. And that's when the real work started to kick in. And that's why I am so passionate about personal development, because I literally just went to work on myself. I went on a self-discovery journey about who am I? What am I about? What is my life about? What am I trying to do? What do I want? And what do I need? These kind of questions. And I started changing everything. I mean, literally, I've changed my diet. I changed the location I live in, my environment. I've got rid of all toxic friendships and relationships. I changed and eventually went on to leave my job, my very, very secure BBC job, which, I absolutely loved. However, I just found myself sitting at my desk thinking, I can't have gone through everything I've gone through just to sit here and still be doing the same thing. But again, I had no idea what I wanted to do or how to change things or anything like that. So I started asking the question, started looking, going, well, what do I want to do with my life? And I don't even know what book it was, but I read somewhere, if you're trying to find meaning in life and change your career, change your job, what you want to do in life, make a list of your skill sets, everything you're good at. Ask your friends, you know, what do they come to you for? What do they rely on you for? What are your skills? And secondly, write all the things that you're passionate about. So at the time, I actually thought, what use is a radio producer outside in the real world? You know, what skills does that? I've got no transferable skills. But what I realized is that I was a very good organizer. Like, you know, to make a program, there's lots of sort of little small parts that you've got to do, and you've got to organize lots of different people. And I realized I was actually very good at that. My friends, I always organized my friends' birthday weekends and stuff like that. And, you know, so they always sort of said to me, Suzy, you should be an event organizer. And I just sort of dismissed it. But then, you know, I then started looking at what I was passionate about. And I was passionate about personal development. I was passionate about helping people. I wanted to make a difference in the world. And I had all these people that had helped me to grow and to develop and improve my life. I could never thank them. So I thought, all I can do is pay that forward to help other people. So the seed of an idea started. It literally, a friend of mine had said, Suzy, do you know some interesting people for a podcast? And I said, gosh, yeah, I know loads of people. And I started phoning around these people and saying, oh, my friend's doing a podcast, can I pass your details on? And I was finding out where they were at, because we hadn't sort of caught up for a few years. And they were saying, you know, I realized I actually knew an awful lot of people that were doing incredible work, trying to make a difference in the world, but they were all doing it tirelessly on their own. So I started to ask the question, what could we create if I could get them all in a room together? And that was the seed of an idea that started Change Your World. And it started with, I thought, okay, I'm a radio producer. I'm good at putting on a show, putting on events. I'll put on a personal development conference. I'll put on a health and wellbeing conference, because that's my skill set and this is my passion. And I had no grand plan of setting up a movement, a Change Your World movement, a health and wellbeing movement, none of that. All I was going to do was one conference, and that was it. And I was just going to carry on at the BBC. However, I set up my first conference, which meant learning all about setting up a website, marketing, doing all kinds of different, you know, learning new skills. And I didn't have a clue about any of them. And I made so many mistakes, you know, just incredible mistakes when I look back, but I learned from them. And I mean, nothing is a mistake if you learn from them. So that led to my first conference. I had 9 speakers. I had 200 people there. Did it here in Inverness, where everybody told me it wouldn't work, but I was determined to do it in Inverness because we never get events like this up here. And 2, we've got a high rate of suicide, particularly in young men up here. And I thought, this is an area that needs this more than ever. So anyway, first conference, and everyone was like, got great feedback, and everyone was saying, oh, when are you doing this again? And, you know, at the time I was completely burnt out, just thinking, oh my God, you know, like I felt like I'd just given birth and I've been told I was pregnant with twins again, but they were telling me I had to do it again. I was like, no, I can't do it again. However, I went on to do 4 conferences, and my big vision was that, you know, I was going to help change the world. I was going to be bigger than TED Talks. I was going to put all this amazing content out. But 4 conferences later, just completely exhausted and burnt out and not making any money, I thought, okay, this is not working. I really need to look at this. But what the biggest thing, as I said right at the beginning, Change Your World is all about the ripple effect. You know, it's about encouraging people to make positive changes in their life, because every time with personal development, when you start a personal development practice, you start to think better. When you think better, you make better choices. When you make better choices, you get better results. And that's when your world starts to change. So I started doing this. I'm getting completely distracted. There's people chatting outside the door there. But I realized what was happening with my conferences. People were coming to my events, and they were totally fired up. They were, you know, in a community of people just totally going, oh my goodness, that speaker was amazing, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to change this, I'm going to change that. And then they would leave the event and then they would just get sucked right back into the vortex of life again. You know, same demands were in life, just because you were taking that space out. My conferences were seeds for people. And it was almost like, it was like going to the gym once and expecting to be fit and healthy. And it just doesn't work. And I thought, okay, I have to take all the elements that are working and provide something that is consistent, daily, and a community. So I then came up with Change Your World Every Day, which is an online coaching group. We coach every day, Monday to Friday at 8 a.m. for 20 to 30 minutes. I have a different coach each week. We have a topic for the month. At the moment, last month we just did Letting Go. Next month is Transformation Month. Then it's Nourishment Month. But we do all kinds of topics: confidence, resilience, relationships, you know, career building, whatever it might be. But the idea of that was, you know, I created a community, because when you're going through change or you're trying to change anything, change is so challenging. It's difficult in the beginning. It is completely messy in the middle, but it's always worth it at the end. And if you do not have community and role models and consistent support around you, when it gets difficult, that's when you'll often give up, because you're just like, oh, you know, this is just too hard. And this is often why we stay stuck, because we don't have those role models around us. And, you know, I said to you right at the beginning, I told you this story about being exposed at the BBC to all these role models. So I had a friend that we joined the window dressing college with, and you know, we completely lost touch in our 30s, and we reconnected literally about 4 years ago. She just got in touch out of the blue. Now, I knew that she just wanted to be married with kids, and I just thought, you know, she was going to be gloriously happy. And I met her, and she was, you know, we met up after sort of 16, 20 years of not seeing each other, and she was just really desperately unhappy. She was in an unhappy relationship. And I thought, wow, what, our lives started off on the same track. What was different? And the thing with Caroline is that she went into retail. We both went into the same job, actually. But she stayed there for 25 years, and she was in a toxic relationship. She'd lost her parents. She didn't have role models around her showing her and encouraging her and supporting her that there could be a different way, or that she could get out of this rut, that she didn't have to stay this way. And that was the difference for me. I was being exposed to different people. I was being challenged. I was being triggered. Like, people would say things to me and I'd be like, no way, that's not right. But then, you know, I would come around to these different perspectives and think, okay, let's just try this. Let's see if it works. And that led our trajectories in different directions. And there's a saying that you become the direct reflection of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Now, when I learned this, I was like, oh my goodness, the 5 people I spend the most time with bring me down, keep me small. They don't encourage me, you know, they belittle me. I said I had toxic relationships, and I knew I needed to get, I mean, I had different people in my life, but these have been friendships that I'd grown up with, and, you know, and I was starting to meet new people, and I was recognizing, actually, these are not healthy friendships that I've got, you know, but I was hanging on to them because we'd been friends for 20 years. And I was thinking, you know, and I started to, and it was painful to let go of those relationships. Letting go of anything is, you know, it's not easy. But I recognized, actually, they were keeping me small. They were keeping me in my limiting beliefs. They didn't encourage or support me to grow. They were threatened by me sort of growing and developing, wanting more for myself. And there's, you know, in Scotland here, there's a kind of phrase, it's like, I right, who do you think you are, kind of thing. And there's a lot of that kind of psyche, you know, that it can be challenged. People can be threatened by you wanting to try and better yourself. However, so when I've just been talking solidly for 30 minutes and I even stopped for a breath. So that's where I am right now, leading this movement, Change Your World, and inspiring people to take up a personal development practice, because I do believe that is the key to changing the world, because the more people we can encourage to go on their own self-discovery journey, learn about who they are, live true to their values and their alignments, then they start making positive choices and change, and their results, their world starts to change organically. If we can encourage more and more people to do this, we organically change the world in the process. So this is where I am now, and I think I probably have spoken for long enough. It's probably time to answer some questions. I've been seeing some comments coming in, so let me go and have a look through that. Goodness.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you for your contribution. Thank you very, very much. Can we all give Suzy a hand clap at the very least? Your story is compelling. I heard someone say in a previous session, you're real, and to suffer so much loss in such a short space of time does cause trauma, and you've done very well. I'm so excited that personal development programs helped you.
Yeah.
We do both. We used to do a lot of counselling, and I think one of the things you said was our findings that people wanted answers. Tell me please what to do, rather than let me just go through this process of disclosure. I too many people left a counselling session thinking, I'm now empty and I'm unarmed. I don't know what to do next. Yeah. So the personal development programs do offer a bit more of a hunch or some sort of analysis with some direction. And like you said, Suzy, I think it's a matter of choice. You've got to find your pathway, which works for you. One of the things that came out of your talk, which triggered something in my mind, was, what would you say if you could get all the people you knew in a room? Interesting conversation now. What would you say? And I'm going to slightly change that question to say, what would you say if you could get all the people of influence that you knew in a room? What would you say to them if you had 2 minutes?
I would, I mean, it would be about asking, what do we need to heal? I was going to say, what can we create? Because that's always my question. What can we create together? But it's, I mean, this situation that we're in right now, I'm having lots of different conversations, and depending on where people are at, I'm finding that, I mean, because there are some people that life has not slowed down for them, and, you know, if anything, their life has gone very stressful because they are key workers, they're on the front line, and life is busy, and they are just in survival mode, doing what they have to do. And now is not an opportunity to start reflecting on your life. But for some people that are, you know, being furloughed, or, you know, they are in a situation where life has paused for them, or certainly slowed down, or it has changed. It's not the daily rat race going to the commute every day and what have you. It is an opportunity to sort of say what is working and what is not. And that's what all these people of influence, you know, we're all, the conversations that I've been having with all my coaches, because we've been having this conversation going, what are we going to do with this situation? You know, what are people going to need when we come out the other side of this? And, you know, the conversations that I'm hearing is that people are really loving the lockdown because they have been chronically stressed, and they're just like, thank goodness for a break, for a pause, for a slower, different pace of life. Thank goodness they're able to connect with their families and their children. I mean, okay, I know we're distancing from our families, but for being able to connect with your children, have more time to play with the children, to talk with the children, because you're not rushing out the door, trying to get yourself to work, trying to get the kids to work. You know, you're actually able to sit and communicate. And, you know, I've had people sort of saying, okay, there's things about lockdown I absolutely hate, but I'm actually, part of me is dreading that lockdown is going to open again and I'm going to return back to that chronic stress, that business as usual. And while some things will be different, there is a fear that it will be just business as usual. But again, when that happens, it will be another pain trigger. And that'll be when you feel that and think, oh, this sucks. That is telling you something in your life needs to change. So when it comes to going back to getting all these people in a room together of influence, it's about looking at, I mean, now is a real opportunity for positive change, to look at what's working, what's not, and what do people need? What does our planet need? What does our environment need? Because we're starting, whilst there's so many challenges around COVID and the lockdown, there's so many positives that have come out of it. I mean, we're seeing a cleaner environment. We're seeing people connecting more with their families, finding creative ways to communicate and connect more, like having conversations that they hadn't done before. So, sorry, all kinds of activity going on out there. I'm going to just close the window.
Well, Suzy, can I just say, we've got about another 8 minutes or so, and there are a few questions that have been posed in the chat box to me.
Yes.
So I'm going to ask them to you.
Okay.
Normally we get a lot of participation through the room, but if you could answer them in, I'm going to put you on the spot here now.
Okay,
if you could answer them in sort of like, as they say, popcorn fashion.
Yes.
Where you
quick
you
fire.
respond,
Okay.
yeah, real quick fire round. Okay, so what 3 top tips could you give parents with regards to positively raising their 0 to 5-year-old children?
0 to 5-year-old. Okay, so
Young children.
I have become a stepmother in the last 2 years. So the children have been, and they are 3 and 5. So this has been the biggest teacher of my life, by the way, having 2 young children. So the first thing I would say is stop comparing yourself to other parents. I'll give you a little story. One of my friends sent a picture of her and her 2 children, fully kitted out in school uniform, at their desk at 9 a.m. doing their work. And I was like, oh my, are you kidding me? I literally looked, I showed the picture to my partner and I said, Dave, look at this. I was like, we haven't even got ourselves dressed yet, let alone the kids, you know? And then 20 seconds later, she sent another picture and she was like, and look at them now. There they were fighting on the sofa, work completely abandoned and everything. I was like, oh, goodness, she is human. Oh, after all. But that was a real lesson, because immediately I went into, oh, look at that. Like, you know, her and her husband's a head teacher. I was like, look at them. They've even got them in their uniforms. Like, they're stuck to their routine. Like, how is this possible? But it lasted like 2 minutes. So I was like, oh, so don't compare yourself. I would talk about stress as well. When right now there's a lot of kind of emotions going on and what have you, and you know, it's fear that, am I doing the right things for the kids, am I enjoying it, you know? So think about, stress is always a fear response. So think about what are you scared of? What's raising this anxiety and stress in you? Is it fear that other people won't think you're a good enough parent? Fear that your children are missing out, that they're not getting what they need, that you're not homeschooling them enough, you're not giving them enough educational value, all these kind of things. Right now is a time to embrace this time with your children, especially 0 to 5-year-olds. And I get it if you're a parent trying to work from home like I am. It's impossible when the children are running around. They want feeding constantly. They constantly want attention. So it's learning to let go of the expectations, let go of all that, and do what you can. Give yourself a massive pat on the back, but learn to play, because you will not get this time back. Embrace this time, because, okay, we might see another lockdown. We might open up and go into lockdown again. Who knows what the future holds? But before we know it, the kids will be back at school, back at nursery, back at their daycare centres and all the rest of it. And we will be back to work as usual, and it'll be busy. And it's like, okay, embrace this time that you have with your children. And as adults, just let go and play more. Have some fun, because do you know what? You're never going to get this opportunity again. And that does have its challenges, especially if you are working from home. But try and adapt your day so that you can have some playtime with the kids, because that is just going to be the most incredible time for a young person, but also as a family unit. So sorry, that wasn't popcorn at all.
Thank you. That was nearly a steak. Never mind. Okay, so in summary, you said embrace your family, play a bit more, let go of expectations, and don't compare. And I think that's really good advice for people with younger children. And actually that goes for 6 to 11-year-olds, 11 to 15, 15 to 20, those age groups where everything's slightly a bit more full on.
One of the other tips, another quick tip I'll give you, and this was from a family I interviewed many years ago, and they realized that their family just was not working. There was a lot of, they had Kevin the teenager, just proper tantrums all the time. And they just thought, what's not working? And they decided to get rid of the TV and mobile phones from 6 p.m. onwards. And every night they played a board game together. And there was huge resistance from the teenagers and the kids. They properly kicked off. They were like, no way, we're not doing this. And the parents stuck to the guns. They said, look, let's just try this for a week. Let's see what difference is. If it doesn't work, then fine, go back. After a week, their family completely transformed. They were communicating, they were sharing what was happening in their day, they were playing, there was trust being built up, the kids were going to the parents more, confiding in them, and the parents were much more relaxed because they were just having this fun time, they were being kids again. Just a simple task. Now, I'm not saying that you have to introduce a board game every day, but it's like, well, what activities can you do, even if it's 3 times a week? And definitely get phones out of your bedroom for the children and the adults. And the reason I say that quickly, another story, Laura Willis from Shine Offline, who spoke at my conference, she explained, she says, you take your phone into your bedroom. She says, if you've got your work emails on your phone, first of all, you've just invited your boss into your bedroom. You then go on BBC News or, your news stations, and you've got Donald Trump doing his latest, whatever he's doing. So you've got Donald Trump in your bedroom. Then you go on Facebook or social media and you're like, oh, look at that. And you've invited your ex-boyfriend into the bedroom. She says, how are you ever going to get a good night's sleep with all that going on before you go into it? And it stuck with me so much. And I thought, not only are parents doing that, but our kids are doing that. And they're, chatting to their friends to the early hours. So, it's not going to be easy trying to shoehorn that phone away from your teenager, but if you can lead by example, take phones out of the bedroom, that is definitely one thing that will massively improve mental health and happiness. So,
and that's a good tip to go forward post-COVID anyway.
Yeah, definitely.
That's really good. There is one more question for you, Tracy. I'm sorry, Suzy.
That's all right. I'll go by Tracy. That's fine.
I had a Tracy on the previous call, sorry. Suzy, with regards to us in this room, and we want to build our mental health and well-being, going forward, looking forward, we realize that things are not going to be what they were. Could you give me two tips on how we can start looking forward to embracing this new normal? What can we add to ourselves to be strong?
Like I've said, this right now is a real opportunity to take a helicopter view of your life and say, well, okay, what's working, what's not? What are the normals I want to return to? What did I like about my post-COVID, pre-COVID life? And what do I want to take forward, and what do I want to ditch? The biggest thing that I always advocate to people is write a list of the things that bring you joy, and then ask yourself, how often are you spending time doing those things with joy? Like my very first life coaching session, what makes me happy? I had no idea, because I had never stopped to ask myself that question. So make a list of the things that bring you joy, that make your heart sing, that lift you up, that nourish you, and think, how can I start implementing that into my life more? Now, the challenge with change is that we often feel that we have to give up things. So if you can just fill your life up with the things that, bring you joy and happiness, and then suddenly you just naturally squeeze out the things that do no longer serve you. So it doesn't feel like you're giving up anything, you're just filling them up and there's no space for them. The other thing I would say is get role models around you, because change is extremely challenging. And have a buddy, I don't know, find whoever it is, but get people to support you, because when it gets difficult and it does get messy in the middle, you will want to give up. So get people and support round about you. But the key thing with change, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. So don't be impatient. And I always give the analogy of driving a car. You're driving on a straight road, and it only needs to be small changes, because if you tweak your steering wheel 2 degrees to the right, that will change the course and the whole trajectory of your whole life. Just that small tweak. So just a small change each and every week, month, whatever. Introduce something. It might be just a simple thing, drinking more water. That will improve your health. Meditating for 5 minutes a day. It doesn't have to be an hour-long session of going all zen. Do micro moments of meditation. Just introduce small incremental changes, and you will see the momentum changing, and you will see these things naturally squeezing out the stuff that doesn't serve you, and your life will be filling up. And that's not to say that you won't be hit with challenges still, but you'll be better equipped and more resilient to deal with whatever comes up that you have to face. So, and who knows, we're dealing with complete uncertainty right now. So if the more solid foundation you can make yourself, the more better equipped you will be to deal with whatever challenges and changes and things that do come up. So I mean, counselling, there's all different remits of counselling, and each one will be different. But what I found personally for me, that the coaching gave me the tools to empower myself, so that I could go away and be a scientist. I'd be given a tool. I think, okay, let me try this. So I became a scientist in my own life. I experimented. I found what worked for me, what was in keeping with my values, what didn't work for me. And, I tried all different things, CBT, all different things. And I found some worked and some didn't, or some just led me onto another bit. So I personally think that personal development and life coaching, if you get a good coach, they will empower you and they will give you the right tools. But then a counsellor can do that as well, but the different techniques are used. And just on the subject you said about depression and what have you, the biggest thing that got me through my situation was hope, knowing that it wouldn't always be like this, that it would change, and this was one period in my life. And I was, if I put these tools and techniques in place, that it would turn this around. I had hope that it would get better. I didn't have certainty, I had hope. And that's a very different thing. But it's when we lose hope that's when we really spiral with our mental health. So keeping hope, having role models, people around you that can keep that hope ignited. So, and that's what a life coach did for me.
Excellent, Suzy, aka Tracy. My final thing to you in a yes/no answer. Now I'm going to have to really pull you in. A yes/no answer. When you became a parent, if you had a parenting course in a coaching format, would it have been of benefit to you?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, it's the hardest job in the world, and nobody gives you a manual. And the best, get support, get coaching.
All right. Well, based on that, I'm going to ask everyone a question in the room, and this is for you or someone you may know. Please give me a yes/no answer.
Okay, I'll read some of them.
This is promising. Just waiting for a few more. Well, let's say it this way. Of everyone who has voted, yeah, everyone who's voted, 100% of you have said yes, you'd want a voucher. And I think it's going to be really useful that you do, utilize these free services that the Institute of Wellbeing is offering. We're giving away this parenting course to those people in this CAF. I'm going to offer it to you so that you could either use it for yourself or pass it on to someone. And so I am going to restrict it to just a few places, but it's going to be a limited time offer. You have to actually start the course before the end of this month, or the person who's doing the course. And, if it takes you a month to do it after that, that's up to you, but it needs to be started by the end of May. If you go there on the 1st of June, it won't work, the voucher code. So, Ricky, is it possible to just put that voucher code in this session, please, for those of you in this room? It would be really useful if you could just take advantage of it, help you with your skills, or help a parent that's preferably a disadvantaged parent, someone who may not have the money to go on a normal training course. Get involved, give it to them, tell them to do it. Sometimes we need to be told, just like Suzy said, her life coach.
Oh, yeah.
And that would be wonderful. As a matter of fact, I've been corrected. The email will be sent to you, everyone who's registered in this forum. An email will be sent to you with a voucher code, and it will give you a bit more instructions. I was just offering it, and really there's a protocol. So yes, it will be sent to you properly, and you can get your voucher code. Please pass it on to someone who needs it if you don't actually do. If you've got children who are older, then I totally understand that it might not be relevant completely, even though the parenting principles are very similar to an older child. So yes, the email, look out for your emails, check your junk emails as well. Sometimes blanket emails go into junk, so do look out for it. You should get it within the next 24 hours, preferably in the next 12 hours actually. And please use it. So whatever you do, have a wonderful day today. I do want to say thank you to Suzy. Your story is compelling. Your journey's an amazing experience, and I'm so glad that you're doing this personal development thing. And it goes hand in glove with what we've been discussing in these sessions over the last 8 weeks. So thank you, Suzy, all the way from Inverness.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Like just up the road in Zoom.
Yes, totally. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, there's a small place when it comes to Zoom.
Exactly. Wonderful. I do appreciate you sharing today.